Site information is critical when coming up with architectural design. And this is because we need to be able to show our building in the existing context by showing features like surrounding buildings, the existing topography, various access points to the site, and also all natural features around the site. And we typically do these things through drawings like plans, elevations, and sections. But oftentimes we won't have the luxury of having the existing site drawings available to us. And in those cases, we can either resort to going to site ourselves and doing the measured survey, or we can pay somebody else to do that professionally. The problem is that these methods are really time consuming and expensive, and especially in the beginning stages of projects, we don't really want to spend that much time on doing surveys. So this is exactly the reason why I decided to make this video, to show a couple of ways you can go about producing site context information without paying anyone or going to the site yourself. So let's assume for a second that we have a project in central London, and it is our job to assess the viability of the site that has an existing building built upon it. And we need to assess if we can add extra footage onto that site, or demolishing existing building and proposing completely new design. So there's two things that we basically need to establish. The first one is how much footage we can get into this building, and two is how tall we can build. So first of all, let's have a look at our site. So our site is located in a very dense area of London. So in this particular case, we have an existing building, probably built in around 20s or 30s. If we were to look at something like this in real life, in order to assess how much footage we can get, we need to assess how tall we can build. And this is where a local planning authority will be playing a major role. And this process is similar in other countries, whereby you submit drawings to the local municipality, and this application then gets assessed and approved or declined depending on their requirements. The beauty with planning applications in UK is that they're all publicly available. So for example, if we go to the Camden Council, which is the council responsible for the site in this particular case, we can then go to search the planning applications, and we can do the map search for planning applications, which should come up with a nice map that we can investigate further to see if there are any existing drawings that have been submitted for that site. So we just need a second to find the site and then filter by the date. There are a couple of dates that seem to have planning applications available. So if we click on the site, on the left hand side we have some sort of planning application from 2019, and if we scroll down, there's usually a pack of drawings attached into this. But what we're looking for is specifically the existing drawings, because that will record the state of the building prior to the works commencing the place, and this is exactly what we need. So previously I already downloaded relevant drawings from this website, and what we have here is a nice selection of plans. We have front elevation, the main elevation, the side elevations, typical upper level, roof level, and then the back elevation as well. So this is a great starting point. We also have this map that shows the context around, which probably is going to be one of the most useful documents. So what this set is kind of missing is that if we look at our 3D view, in our 3D view we can clearly see that there is more to the side than just the building. And because we're trying to maximize the area, the planning authority will be really keen to see how this proposal will sit in the adjacent context. So for that reason, we actually need to show more than it is available in our planning application. And for that, I'm going to be showing my second way to come up with the site information. So for that, I'll be using Google Pro. So the reason why I use Google Pro instead of Google Earth is because Google Pro actually has some interesting and very neat features about it. Like for example, it has the ability to export 4K resolution images as opposed to the typical screenshot that you would get on normal Google Maps, which especially for the purposes like this is a game changer. And so here, if we position our camera correctly, for example, pick up the adjacent trees over here, and then the adjacent building across the road. So once we've positioned our camera like so, we can then go to this little tab over here, third from the right, and select the maximum resolution, and then hit the save image, choose the location, and hit save. And this will export the image. Okay, and I kind of want to do the other side as well. And a neat thing about Google Maps is that if you get sufficiently low in your view, you are sometimes able to to kind of look through the buildings, you can see that there's like a little glitch that's going on, that I'm able to actually be within this church over here to see what's behind. So I'll save this at high resolution as well. And in fact, what I probably want to do is I will also want to have this elevation here to see a bit more. And likewise as before, we can kind of move into the adjacent building to then capture the full extent of the context. I'll hit save on this one, let it export. And the typical rule of thumb that I usually use when I produce context elevations is that I try to keep at least one width of the building next to it. So the building is, I don't know, 20 meters. Then I'll draw the adjacent context 20 meters away from that. So I'll save this last slide as well. Okay, so now that we have all the site information available, it's time to compose it together. The way I'm going to go about it is the way I like it, which is using AutoCAD. Okay, so first what I want to do is I want to import the original drawing, and I want to scale it up to a decent scale so that I can see it. And then over here I can see the scale on the page. I want to scale this page to be A3, which is 420 millimeters wide, and then enter the scale on the page, so 1250. That should give me the exact size of the building. Just gonna check if this width makes sense realistically. So it's about 35 meters, which kind of sounds realistic. So I'll then rotate it with the reference to this front elevation just to allow me to see the building a bit better. And I also will clip the view so that it's a bit less messy. So the next thing I want to do is I want to place a couple of elevations, and I'll pick the ones that I think are the most important. So it'll be that front view elevation first of all. So let's see which one it is. It'll be this one here I want to pick. So yep, that's the one, place it in, and then I might as well just place the other elevation as well next to it. And then likewise I want to scale these drawings. These are drawn at A1, which equals 841 millimeters, and because they're at 100, scale 1 to 100, I just have to scale those two pages by 100, and that should in theory give me the right building size. Let's just check it against the existing site plan, and yes, indeed, you can see how the edges of the building touch the edge of the plan. That's great. We can just move it down under, somewhere below the site plan, and then do a similar comparison with the elevation next doors. Drag it over here, pick like a point along the edge of the building and compare the size. And yep, the edge of the building matches the edge of the plan. That's great. We can just move it down. We can clip the view again by generating a boundary so that our workplace is kind of nice and neat. And so once this is done, it's time to start importing our images. So some of these buildings are actually been drawn up, so I think that side is going to be easier. I'm just going to draw some guiding lines, and I'm also going to draw the ground line extending out. And with this one, the next building in a row is the edge of the Woburn Square, and also this assembly hall edge over here. So I'll draw those two together, and I'll leave that there. So for this next part I need to open the Photoshop, and I'll put my saved elevations into it. And the reason why I want to do that is because these buildings are obviously distorted a little bit, and you can see that by just drawing some guidelines. If I use this tool over here, which is called Perspective Crop Tool, I can figure out, you know, if I assume that the building elevation should be orthogonal proportionally to the ground and to the wall edges, you know, chances are that that building is quite parallel, but in this image it isn't. So the trick around it is to use this tool and then simply extend it to cover the whole of the building. And in my case, I also might take into account these trees. That's an important feature, and then hit OK. And that kind of gives me the image, which is slightly distorted. So what I'll do is I'll push it over, and then I'll do the same on the other elevations. And once I have them saved over, I can just simply import them. Okay, fantastic. So we now have all these elevations, and now we can just put them roughly where they belong in relation to the proposal, or the existing building rather. So the trick in scaling the building is by using another feature of Google Earth, which is basically, if we get out of this view, you can see here that bottom right, you can see there's elevation gauge. So when I hover around the pavement, it shows the 25-meter height above the datum, and at the top is 48. This building here is 46. So we know this building here is 2 meters lower, roughly speaking, than the height of the roof of the adjacent one. So our proposal is 48 and this one is 46. So the difference is 2 meters. So then if I place this image here along the guideline that we've created previously, which will be the edge of that adjacent building, and then offset it by 2 meters from the rooftop of the building that's ours, and then offset it by 2 meters, that should give the height of the adjacent building. So let's see if we can scale it. Kind of roughly, I'll hover slightly above because I think the perspective distorts the actual site, so I'll use a little bit of artistic liberty over here and then scale it all the way to here. And that kind of gives me the realistic height of this adjacent building over here in relation to our building. And we can do the same approach to the other side as well. Okay, so this looks quite chaotic. So at this point, what I want to do is I want to quickly set up the sheets. Set up our sheet to be A3, and this is A3 page. So I'll make sure I have some kind of decent realistic scale. At this point, we kind of have a choice of whether to trace this in the AutoCAD or whatever CAD software that we're using, or we can do it quicker, and it's by tracing it over. So I'm now gonna go into the Procreate and trace it over to finish this exercise up. Okay, so that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this video. Check out my other video on how to design a residential house completely from scratch. So if you enjoyed this video, you might also like that video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.